Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MTG Traders. My name is Taryn, and this is Simic Infect for Pauper. So earlier this week, I did an actual Infect deck for Modern. Had a decent turn 2 kill, turn 3 kill, a bit more consistent. But a lot of the cards that are in that Modern list are actually common, which means we can actually kind of bump this down and make a Pauper format list out of Infect. And that's exactly what this list is here. But of course, before I get into it, make sure to like the video. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Really helps us out, really helps keep the channel growing, and helps keep the content flowing. But without further ado, let's get right into it, guys. We have 4 Glistener Elf. This was in the other Modern deck, but this is still a common for us, so it's going to be in the Pauper deck. This is a 1-mana 1/1 Elf Infect Warrior, or Elf Warrior that has Infect. And of course, Infect is, this creature deals damage in the form of -1/-1 counters, and to players in the form of poison counters. And so what that means is, once we hit 10 poison counters on an opponent, we automatically win the game. So getting to 10 rather than 20 is a lot easier for us. Of course, our creatures are kind of weaker for that reason. Next up here for creatures for us, we have 3 new cards from the common set here for Pauper. This is Blight Mamba. This is 3 2-mana 1/1 snakes with Infect, and we can pay to and regenerate Blight Mamba. So there are a lot of removal spells in the Pauper format, or maybe it's just we need to have an ability to block an opponent's creature. Having the ability to have a regenerate creature here is fantastic for us. Of course, one of the cards that is used the most in the Pauper format is the Edict card, so sacrificing it. Blight Mamba can't really help that, so that is one thing we have to kind of work around, but I still think that having a regenerating Infect creature here is fantastic. Next up here for another creature, we have Kerclaw Mirror. I think that's how you pronounce it. This is a 4-mana, 2 colorless, or 4 of 2 colorless, not 4 mana. 4 of 2 colorless, 1/1 Mirror with Infect, and when it gets blocked, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So if this gets blocked by an opponent's creature, more often than not, it's just going to demolish and bulldoze that creature without us really having to use any kind of pump spells whatsoever. Kerclaw Mirror, however, does close out the gap as far as how many creatures are in the deck, and that brings our total to 11. So we have all of these low-end creatures that have Infect. What can we do with them? Well, we want to pump them up, and that's exactly what we're going to do with our spell slot here. We have Distortion Strike here. This is a 4 of 1-mana sorcery. Target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn, and can't be blocked this turn, so this is a great way to get around a wide board state for an opponent. It also has Rebound, which means if you cast a spell from your hand, exile it as it resolves. At the beginning of your next end step, you may cast this card from exile without paying its mana cost, which means we have 2 opportunities with 1 card to be able to get into our opponent's life total, or get into our opponent's, red zone to give some poison counters. Next up here for us, for just some basic pump spell, we have the classic common here. This is a 4 of Giant Growth, 1 green mana instant. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Very simple, very straightforward. Would have been in the Modern list, but we had a couple of cards like mine of the Okrosa that did a little bit more like +4/+4 instead of +3/+3. But in here in the Pauper list, Giant Growth is just fine. Moving on up to the slots here for some more pump spells, we have Groundswell. This is a 4 of 1-mana instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. This has landfall, which means if you had a land enter the battlefield under your turn, this creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn instead, which is very, very good for us because it turns our Giant Growth into a, Might of Old Krosa if we played a land this turn. And hopefully we do on turn 4 to be able to get out turn 2 to be able to get out a turn 2 kill or turn 3 kill thanks to cards like Groundswell. Moving up here for some more pump spells, we have Mutagenic Growth. This is a 4 of Phyrexian mana green, so we can pay 1 green mana for this, or we can pay 2 life, which means if we're out of mana, which we will be on turn 2 or 3, we can just pay our 2 life, because for us, life is not that important. We want to get poison counters out as quickly as possible. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn, so multiples of these in our hand, we can pay 4 life and give target creature +4/+4 until end of turn, which is ridiculously powerful. Moving on here for us, we have Ranger's Guile. So Blossoming Defense is an uncommon from Kaladesh, and we kind of need something like that in the actual main board here, and that's what Ranger's Guile is for. This is a 4 of 1 green mana instant. Target creature you control gets +1/+1 and gains hexproof until end of turn. Blossoming Defense gives +2/+2, so we are losing, +1/+1 as far as the difference here, but I guess that is the difference we pay for the common to uncommon slot right now. But I do think Ranger's Guile is still very good for us, and of course it does pump our creature and keep them alive for the next turn. Next up here for us, we have 3 Spell Pierce. So in the Modern version, we didn't really have much interaction in the Game 1 game plan. We did in the sideboard, but in the Game 1 game plan here, there are a lot of low-end cards that actually can do a lot of damage in the Pauper format. So Spell Pierce here is to help protect our creature or help our actual pump spells go off without being counterspelled, things like that. Spell Pierce, of course, is a 3 of 1 blue mana instant. Counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 2 colorless, which means we can hopefully shut down a control strategy long enough to get our poison counters through and close out a match. But that is all the control magic in the actual Game 1 game plan here, so let's go on to some more pump spells. We have Vines of Vaska. This is like a pseudo protection spell and a pump spell together. This is a 4 of 1 green mana instant with a kicker for 1 green mana, which means if we want to pay 2 green mana when we cast a spell, we can, which means it kicks. Target creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponent controls this turn, and if Vines of Vaska was kicked, which means if we paid 2 green mana for it, that creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. So very similar to Groundswell. It kind of has like another like secondary trigger it has to hit, so we have to pay 2 mana for it. But getting +4/+4 again is still really important for us and great for us as far as getting in some damage. And the last 4 cards in the deck here are Apostle's Blessing. This is just another kind of protection spell for us. This is a 4 of 2 mana, or 1 colorless and 1 white Phyrexia mana. We don't have any white in the actual deck, so we're going to pay 2 life for this instead. This is an instant. Target artifact or creature you control gains protection from artifacts or from the color of your choice until end of turn, which means all of our creatures are protected from a particular color or an artifact until end of turn. So if we're trying to attack out into a large board state or block a large board state, we can definitely do that. Or if our opponent has like a lightning bolt or something like that kind of directed at our creature, we can use Apostle's Blessing to protect our creature for the turn. But that is the full deck list here besides the lands. Let's go over lands really quick. We have 2 Simic Guild Gates, so this is basically coming in tapping for green or blue. Then we have 8 forest or 8 island and 8 forest, so it's an even split, 16 basic lands, and then of course 2 dual lands. And that is the full Game 1 game plan. So we want to be as aggressive as possible, getting out as much damage as possible, and you know, just kind of like swinging for face. We want to most likely get in our turn 2 win, turn 3 win, like as soon as we possibly can. But Game 2 game plan, our opponent may be boarding into a lot more removal, or maybe boarding into some more control magic. What can we do against the those kind of matchups? Let's go to the sideboard here. First up against the control matchup, we have 2 Dispel here. This is a 1 blue mana instant counter target instant spell. So if our opponent is playing a lightning bolt, we can definitely dispel that. If our opponent is playing a counter spell against us, we can dispel that as well. So a great way to protect our creatures, protect our spells, and make sure that our actual points of damage are going through. Next up here, we have 4 Nature's Claim. So there is affinity in the Pauper format, which is crazy, I know, but having a 4 of 1 green mana instant destroy target artifact or enchantment, its controller gains 4 life is pretty good for us. So keep in mind that our opponent gaining 4 life is not that important to us. We're actually doing poison counters, so the gaining life doesn't mean anything to us. So this is just a 1 green mana destroy target artifact or enchantment, which is great. Moving on here to some graveyard hate, we do have Relic of Prejudice. This is a 2 of 1 colorless artifact. Target player removes a card from his or her graveyard from the game, which is great, but we can also pay 1 and remove Relic of Prejudice from the game, which exiles it, remove all graveyards from the game, and we get to draw a card. So it does have some sort of be able to kind of cantrip for us or draw into another card for us, which is nice, and it does get rid of an entire graveyard from an opponent, which if they have any kind of devil mechanics, we definitely want to do that. Next up for us, we have Negate, another card to help to prevent any kind of like board wipes, any kind of cards like an Edict that's going to come our way if we have 1 creature on the battlefield. We want to bring in Negate in because it counters target non-creature spell, and that's exactly what we want to do for just 2 mana. Now moving on to some more interesting cards for us from the sideboard here, thanks to it being Pauper, we have Tangle here. This is a 2 of 2 colorless or 1 colorless 1 green mana instant, prevent all combat damage that will be dealt this turn. Each attacking creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So if our opponent decides to kind of swing out for the game and make sure that we actually have mana up, we're going to play Tangle. We're going to make sure that we prevent all combat damage, and we're going to make sure that they're tapped down so we can swing out the following turn and actually hopefully close out the match. So Tangle is very interesting for us, kind of helps us kind of elongate a game, and it helps us kind of make sure that we can actually get that game-ending damage. And the last 3 cards in the sideboard here for us are Treetop Bracers. This is a 3 of 2 colorless or 2 mana enchantment aura, enchant creature, and enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and can't be blocked except by creatures with flying. So in the actual format in Pauper, there are very few decks that have flying creatures. Of course, we have the Delver deck, as you know, so this will not be coming in for that particular matchup, as they do have quite a few flyers in that one. But let's say we're up against an elf deck, or let's say we're up against another kind of Groundswell deck. We're going to go with Treetop Bracers into our sideboard, into our game plan, mainboard game plan, and just kind of have a +1/+1 unblockable for just 2 mana, which is great. And with that is the full deck list here. That's the full 75. So let's go over the full layout here. On MTGO Traders, it's coming to about 12 tickets, which is actually not bad at all. It kind of fluctuates between 12 and 14. So I've kind of seen it at 12. I've kind of seen it at 14. So I'm just going to say 12 for now, because that's the most I've seen it for a while. So So the actual paper price is at $52, which is not bad either. Again, this is Pauper, so this is all commons, so it's going to be a relatively cheap deck. And of course, Infect was just recently, in standard a couple years ago, so there's still a lot of cards that are kind of in circulation right now with Infect on them. But when all is said and done, the Simic Infect here is actually very, very powerful. We can definitely get a turn 2 win. We can definitely get a turn 3 win, and our game 2, with our sideboard game plan, is very, very nice against removal, against control, and against a wide game plan like an elf strategy, something like that, thanks to Treetop Bracers. But that's going to do it for the deck tech, guys, today. I hope you liked the video. Like it if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment below on your thoughts on the deck. Any suggestions you might add or change to the deck. I definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I do definitely want to see if you guys are still interested in Pauper and if you like these deck techs, or if you want me to kind of go on to back to standard and do some more standard deck techs instead. But definitely let me know in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.